Welcome to the NBAV podcast.
Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast. And what we have today is we're talking about a couple of games. It was really a very quiet night of NBA action. You only had 2 ball games, which is pretty rare to have a regular season, regular night, and only have 2 games. So we had 2 games last night, and we'll have 12 games tonight. So it shows you just what an outlier. The previous night, we also had like 10 or 12 games, and you usually have at least 4, 5, 6 games or more on every single night, but only 2 last night. I guess that's just the way it works out sometimes. And you had a game with the Celtics against the Hawks where, yes, you could say it's a fluke when it happens once, but then when it happens again, now it's a little harder to know, is that a fluke or is this kind of a matchup that works for Atlanta? And I had a relative of mine who's a big Atlanta Hawks fan. He's originally from Atlanta. And he sent me a message saying, you're going to have to give a little bit of time to the Atlanta Hawks on NBAV after that game last night. And I said, well, yeah, a little bit of time, sure. But as I look at the game, it's hard to really talk too much about the Atlanta Hawks because, yeah, they won and they beat Boston. They beat the best team. But when you look at the standings in the Eastern Conference, the Hawks are still in 10, and they are going to need to win 2 games in a row just to make it into a playoff series. So it's like, should I be going AWOL over the Atlanta Hawks? Like, how much Hawks basketball can we talk already? Yes, I understand DeJounte Murray, the 44 shots, the 44 points. Is that good? Is that bad? But he did great in overtime. He got to his spot. That was really the difference, is where he was missing a lot of shots. And got to his spots, he started to hit a lot of shots, and then he caught fire at the right time. But I think it's a result of getting to the right spots that enabled him to start really getting hot and getting going. It's like when you have some guys, naturally, they like the corner 3. Like PJ Tucker, big corner 3 guy. And there's other guys in the league as well, the corner 3. And then there's some guys, myself included, that when I play basketball, I always preferred the straightaway 3. Because to me, when you are shooting like a foul shot, you have it lined up perfectly. You see the backboard, you see the rim, you see the back rim, you have a full view of everything. And all you got to do is keep your arms straight and you're going to hit the shot. So I always preferred the straightaway 3. And there was even one time I was in camp and they had this shootout and it was best of 5. So a bunch of different guys, a bunch of different staff members had to step up and try to hit how many of the 5 threes are you going to be able to hit? And it was for points and color war, this and that. And I was watching how everyone was choosing either a left wing or a right wing, and it wasn't working out for them. They were either scoring 1 or 0 shots. And then some people like the corner, and I understand that the corner is the shortest 3, but there are some players who it works out better for to take the straightaway. And especially for a guy like DeJounte Murray, where his favorite shot is about the foul line jumper, or a little bit at the top of the key, but still within the 3-point line. That sort of 2-point shot is really his sweet spot, but then on occasion he's able to take it out there to 3-point territory and hit that straightaway 3. Now, look, he can hit from anywhere. He can score from anywhere, but his best chance of scoring, I would say, is that straightaway. Well, first of all, straightaway within the 3-point line, so a 2-pointer, and then occasionally spreading it out to the straightaway 3-point shot. And I think that's really his best way of going from 2 to 3. But it's not like they do this every night. It's not like the Hawks are going to go there, and if the Hawks play the Celtics and Bucks and Knicks and Cavaliers, all the top team, maybe the Cavaliers because they're playing so poorly right now. But if the Hawks were playing all of the best teams in the league on a nightly basis, they probably would be not having a very good record, and they don't have a very good record right now. They're under 500 on the season. So how berserk am I supposed to go? They're going to be in a first round play-in game. So they're going to have to play the Chicago Bulls. Now, the Bulls have a lot of talent. They have DeRozan, they have Kobe White, and they have other pieces. They have Caruso. So it's not going to be easy to beat the Chicago Bulls. I would give it a 50-50 shot in one game, 50% that the Hawks will win and 50% that the Hawks will lose. And then let's say the Hawks win. Then the Hawks are going to maybe have to play the 76ers. And there I would give them a better chance to win, but still, one game on one night, who knows? So let's say you give them a 75% chance of winning that game. So it's a 50-50 chance they lose the first one. It's a 25-75 that they lose the second one. But that already is giving it, I don't know how to do odds. I'm sure I could ask ChatGPT to do that. But basically, if you have, let's just do this very quickly. But if you have 50% chance to win one game and 25 to win the next, what's the chance of winning both? Let's see what the great chatbot has to say. To find the probability, blah, blah, blah. They're doing a formula with P and A and B. There's a 12.5% chance of winning both games. Wow. And thank you for bearing with me while I did that. But if you have a 50% chance of winning the first game, and by the way, their odds of winning that first game are probably even less because they have shown on the season that they're actually behind Chicago. And Chicago has more star power at the top as long as Trae Young isn't in the lineup. So, but I think we're being fair, saying there's a 50-50 shot that the Hawks would beat the Bulls in the first one, and then then there would be a. Oh, I did this incorrectly. Let's say there was a 75% chance. What if game 2 was 75%? If game 2 was 7, because I accidentally put in that there was so there would be a 37.5% chance of winning both games. Sorry about that. If the first game was a 50-50 shot, which I think is fair, and the second game was a 75% chance, assuming that they're playing Philadelphia, which, by the way, we don't even know that. They may end up playing Miami. They may end up playing Indiana for all we know. So I would assume they'll probably play Philly if they win against the Bulls, but who knows? So all things considered, after the Atlanta Hawks beat the Celtics last night, they still have to go and probably have maybe a 37.5% chance of even making it to a playoff series. And then if they make it to a playoff series and they have to go against Boston, still, just because you beat them very narrowly in overtime and you beat them a couple of times on the year, in a 7-game series, you're still going to be the underwhelming underdog. Right? Like, you're not going to that's the way it's going to be. It's not like you suddenly are in the driver's seat against Boston. Oh, we got Boston. Boston can't beat us. No, Boston can beat you. Boston can beat you, and they will beat you. And in a 7-game series, you know what? They might even beat you in 5 or 6 games. So it's great that you won it last night. And I like what you're seeing from DeJounte Murray. And he's had a couple of big moments this season. I like the way he's come up big at the end of ball games. He had a couple of games like this, but it's hard to think when you have a team being led by DeJounte Murray. Let's say he was the go-to main point guard on his team, and there was no Trae Young for the entire season. How far would they go? Like, I would not want my team to be structured around DeJounte Murray as the lead guard because he's not good enough shooter. And in a game where he scored 44 points, it was on 44 shots. So what you're seeing is he doesn't connect on a high percent of his shots. Because if he did connect on a high percent, then he probably would have scored 60 points in this ball game. And that's what I have to say about Atlanta going against Boston. But altogether, then you look at Boston, and it's like, well, Boston still is 11 games up on the 2 seed. So Boston is in first by 11 games over any other team. There isn't even 11 games left on the year. So Boston already has it clinched. Number 1 record. And I'm not just talking number 1 seed. I'm talking number 1 record. There was another game that happened against the Pelicans. And it's about time that you really just have to start giving the Pelicans a lot of credit. And I already have. It's been some time since I started crediting the Pelicans. But the Pelicans have beaten a lot of bad teams, and now they're showing that they can beat good teams as well. And this is without Brandon Ingram. So that's a pretty good victory to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, a team who has a legitimate championship roster. That roster is championship worthy. I don't care what you tell me about their record, their coach, the firing of Adrian Griffin, and Doc Rivers, and this and that, and Dame is bad defense. That's a championship roster. And then you have a team like the Pelicans, and they just showed we're more athletic, we're more committed on defense. We can get multiple blocks in one possession. We are more even. We are more solid, 1 to 5. And we can beat you. And that was as strong of a victory as you can have. Where, when I say strong, I don't mean like, yeah, sure, they could have blown them out 120 to 80, and that would have been a stronger game. But this was, the Pelicans were, I think they were losing 25-24, and then I think maybe 28-27, something like that. And from that point on, the Pelicans pulled away. And then the Milwaukee Bucks clawed back. And they've got it to like 5 or 6 or 7 points a couple of times. And New Orleans never gave up the lead. They always pulled steadily back away. And that's a very impressive, strong type of victory, in my opinion. That's very, very good. I was very impressed by the way they played last night. And like I said on previous episodes, you're gathering intel because every game that's played without Brandon Ingram and your team goes out there and they play with pace and you get more Zion in the middle of the floor, you get some good passing, and you get his touch at the basket and you're able to spread things out a little bit. It's interesting. It's food for thought because that's what you have to do is you have to decide which 1 or 2 guys are we going to send out to get that one big dog to take us to the next level. So on one hand, you're gathering intel, and then on the other hand, you're in the middle of a season where it doesn't matter how much intel you gather, you still have to just play out this season with the team that you have. So you're going to hope that you get a favorable matchup, and it certainly looks like you're going to end up playing against the Clippers because it looks like the Pelicans are going to be able to stave off Dallas, and it looks like the Clippers are going to be either 4 or 5 with Pelicans being 4 or 5. So that 4-5 matchup, it's pretty enticing because the Pelicans have a solid team and they have a team that's very committed on defense, and they're willing to scrap and claw in a way that the Los Angeles Clippers are not. Paul George, James Harden, and Kawhi Leonard are well into their NBA careers. And those guys are not willing to claw and scratch and dive and defend the same way that everyone on the Pelicans will. And I know that Kawhi Leonard is a great defender one-on-one, and Paul George is known to be a good defender, although that's waned over the years as he's gotten older. But yeah, Kawhi will defend you. He will stay in front of you. He will do his best. He will use his good hands to try to get a steal. But if the ball goes on the floor and 3 guys are trying to dive on it, Kawhi Leonard is not diving on that ball at this point in his career. It's been shown in games that he's played this season. He will not do that. He will not risk himself in that way. And the Clippers are on a short list of teams that are heading in the wrong direction. You could call it the Clippers. You could call it the Cleveland Cavaliers. Teams who are getting ready to enter the playoffs, and they're not playing as well as they were earlier in the year. The Indiana Pacers are another good example. Obviously, the 76ers, because they just don't really have a choice. They don't have a real team. They're a glorified G League team at this point. But the Pelicans have a golden opportunity. They're going to face the Clippers in round 1. Wow. That is a good opportunity for a young, athletic, well-rounded, solid team. A very, very good opportunity, whether you have Brandon Ingram or whether you don't. Because you showed last night you have enough talent to beat a lot of good teams without Brandon Ingram. Then we have a whole bunch of games coming up. Tonight, the Clippers will play the Magic in Orlando, and I think that should be enough for Orlando to snap out of their couple of game skid. The Clippers have been one of the lesser teams in the league after they went on their hot streak. They had about a 30-game stretch where they were one of the best, and since then, below average. So Orlando should be able to snap out of it. They bring their intensity every night. They've been working in some players who are injured back into the lineup, and we'll have to see how the influx of the other guards of Markelle Fultz coming back in and Cole Anthony, and seeing, hey, is that ultimately upsetting the balance where you were better off with more Suggs? We'll have to see. That's going to be a question which is going to be answered over time. But I think the Magic should be able to get that victory. Then you have a Pistons against the Wizards, which nobody cares about. Then you have the Lakers against the Pacers. And if you are a betting man and you want to gamble on this game, I really don't know what I would do, because this is the exact type of game that the Pacers play well in and they win. And this is exactly the type of game where the Lakers, you think, have a good shot to win it, and they lose. So maybe you just say, hey, we go with the Pacers, but Lakers certainly have the talent to win a game like this, especially if LeBron comes back into the lineup. But maybe for the Lakers, it doesn't really matter at this point. You're going to be playing those couple of play-in games anyway, so maybe you just try to start resting your team. I mean, the Lakers are a game and a half back of the Sacramento Kings, so maybe you still want to make one last push to move up another spot in the seeding. Lakers versus Pacers, ultimately, I would have to side with the Pacers in this one, even though the Pacers have been so underwhelming recently, and the Lakers have been their typical up and down selves. Then you have the Warriors, who will get it done against the Hornets. The Hornets are so bad that the Warriors will get it done. Vasilije Micic is not coming up with a monster 40-point game to take the Hornets to victory. So it's going to be the Warriors are going to get the win, and the Warriors are going to move a little bit closer to the Lakers. The Warriors are going to move a little further away from the Rockets. And then you have the Bulls against the Nets, which does not matter at all. You have the Sixers against the Cavaliers, which only really matters in the sense that the Sixers are trying to not sink any lower. The Sixers are trying to maybe go higher, get out of the play-in, but it's probably not a realistic expectation with the current roster. And it's more of a question of how bad are the Cavaliers right now? And doesn't matter, because once Donovan Mitchell comes back into the lineup, then maybe you just forget about this whole stretch of the season and you reorient things around him, because that was what worked for you. Then you have the Suns, who continue this gauntlet. So after losing to the San Antonio Spurs in that wake-up call, they went out and they beat the Denver Nuggets on the back of an incredible game from Kevin Durant, who recently passed Shaquille O'Neal on the all-time scoring list, and he showed you why in that last game. And now they're going to have to go play against the Thunder, and from the word on the street, it seems like SGA is not going to suit up for this one. But that's not a gimme. You're still going to Oklahoma City. They still have a lot of good options who are going to be able to score a lot of points. At this point, you have to give Jalen Williams credit like the second best player on a top seed. That's how good he is. That we're talking about J-Dub. And you have Dort. He's going to defend and he's going to shoot the three. You have Chet Holmgren, who didn't play great in the last one against the Rockets, but he's going to bring some defensive intensity, try to get some blocks. Josh Giddey has had a monster last 2 games, and you should be concentrating a lot of your defensive efforts onto Giddey, because he's been really, really good. Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, and a little bit of Gordon Hayward, Kenrich Williams, and the other Jalen Williams coming off the bench. So there's plenty of firepower from this Thunder team, and if Phoenix takes them any lighter than they should, it's a big mistake, and they will get blown out in Oklahoma City tonight. So, hey, have the Suns totally woken up? And are they going to go on a big run here, going down the stretch, to try and stay out of a play-in game and really try to compete with Dallas for that 6th seed? Or are they ultimately just going to settle in? We're going to have to see. I think that the schedule over time is going to lead to some losses, and they will end up in that play-in, like I've been saying this entire time. Then you have the Heat going to play the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers, I believe, have lost 8 in a row, so although the Heat are as inconsistent as anyone in the league, I do imagine that they will beat the Trailblazers. Like, what do the Trailblazers really have to play for? Then you have the Knicks, who are playing their best basketball, and they're getting Mitchell Robinson back, so that's really, really awesome. You just want to see him stay healthy, and they're going to dismantle the Spurs tonight in San Antonio. The Timberwolves are going to go and battle the Nuggets for the top seed. Wow, this one's going to be fun. The last time these two teams played each other, it was a good attempt by the Timberwolves. They played it really close. They kept clawing back at the end, but the Nuggets were able to pull away. And the Nuggets do have the better team, so I imagine that the Nuggets will be able to get the win again, especially on their home floor. Then you have the Rockets, who are going to go for their their 12th, their 11th straight game, their 11th straight victory tonight, and it's against the Utah Jazz. So it's a very good chance to do that. I believe the Rockets will win this one, and then they're going to go on a 5-6 game stretch where they're going to be playing much tougher competition. So I'm looking for them to get this win tonight, sort of a trap game, and then continue the road trip. And we'll see what happens as they face the tougher teams. But we are looking for the Rockets to, after beating Oklahoma City in that really amazing game with the overtime and all that, we're hoping to see the Rockets get the win tonight, which they should, and then move on to tougher games ahead, which should be the deciding factor in whether they'll make the play-in tournament or not. And then you have the game of the night. It's going to be a rematch, the Mavericks against the Kings. These teams faced off against each other very recently, and the Mavericks absolutely gut punched the Kings. This is about playoffs, it's about seeding, and it's also about respect. And I think that De'Aaron Fox needs to take it personally, and he needs to go out and get the W. And Domantas Sabonis needs to show that he's a big-time player and a big game player, and that he's not the double-double guy. He's the playoff caliber win guy. That's what you want to be. You want to be the guy who can turn it on in the playoffs like Rajon Rondo. You want to be a guy who turns it on like Big Shot Bob. You want to be the guy who comes up big for your team. You don't want to be the regular season double-double guy. That's a really pathetic moniker to have. Oh, I scored the most. I got the most double-doubles in consecutively in regular season games. In an age where there's a gazillion possessions in an NBA game. So that's really not what you want. You want to be the guy who, when you're in a big game, he comes up big. That's what you want, and that's what I want to see from them tonight. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't think that, because I think Dallas is firing on all cylinders. The Kings are inconsistent. But hey, the Kings can turn up in one game now and then go lose their next one after that. But the Kings have to fight for respect. And that's what I want to see. Then that's gonna be tonight's games, and then you'll go into the weekend. You'll also have the Celtics on Saturday. You'll have the Celtics against the Pelicans, so that's a really good game. Celtics are coming off off of some losses, so the Pelicans are going to try to keep that trend going on their homestand. It's a good game. It's a good game, but it's hard to bet against the Celtics too many times in a row. If they just lost, odds are they're going to win the next one. Then you have the Grizzlies against the Magic, and then you will have a Bucks against the Hawks. So the Hawks are going to go from beating the number 1 seed in the NBA to going to beat the number 2 seed trying to beat the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, and we'll see if they'll be able to do it. But looking at the standings, in the Eastern Conference, you haven't really seen any change. Sure, the Knicks moved in front of the Cavaliers, and the Pacers are in 6, the Heat are in 7. Sixers are in 8, but that's pretty much what we've had for a while. And in the Western Conference, you have that cluster of 3 at the top, Nuggets, Timberwolves, Thunder. That could change based on the Nuggets-Timberwolves game tonight. Also, the Thunder playing tonight against the Phoenix Suns. So could be some movement there, or maybe not. Maybe it'll still all be pretty close to each other by the end. If the Nuggets beat the Timberwolves, then yeah, the Nuggets would be a game and a half up, potentially a game and a half up on the other two teams. But if the Nuggets lose, then they'll all be in that basically same spot. But this is a chance tonight, if the Nuggets win, to say, hey, we're the 1 seed and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's basically going to be it. Because if they have a game and a half lead and there's only 7 or 8 games to go, they'll really have a stranglehold on this thing, especially with how well they're playing. Then you have the Clippers in 4, the Pelicans in 5. They're on a collision course to play each other in the first round, and we already discussed it. The Dallas Mavericks are in 6, and I believe they'll stay in 6. Phoenix in 7, Kings in 8. They both have very tough schedules ahead of them. And then you have Lakers in 9, Warriors in 10, and the Rockets are trying to nudge their way in there. So you pretty much have what we've had for a little while. You can follow the show. I'm NBAV. That's NBAVE, short for NBA Avenue. Follow us on social. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe. And you can email the show at nbavenue@yahoo.com. That's NBAVENUE@yahoo.com with your questions and comments. We're your source for a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.